Tracy Bevan's name is synonymous with the McGrath Foundation. As Foundation Ambassador and Director, Jane McGrath's best friend has diligently carried out the plan they hatched together to ensure every Australian suffering breast cancer has access to a McGrath breast care nurse. With 151 nurses already throughout Australia, there is still a way to go, but with the passion and dedication of Tracy and the McGrath Foundation team, I have no doubt their dream will be realised.
Tracy, thank you so much for joining me to let us know what McGrath Foundation do, and I really appreciate it, particularly this month, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, because I know you must be even busier now than any other time of the year.
Well, yes, October's always one of the times on the calendar, as you said, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, as well as the pink test. So it's back to back for us at the moment. But this year is very different because I'm used to travelling all over Australia, attending many events that the community and the corporates are putting on for the foundation. But obviously with COVID at the moment, that's changed. So I'm doing a lot of Zoom meetings and I am actually going to Mudgee at the weekend because Mudgee, as many towns do, they pink up the whole of October. So they've got the Mudgee races. So I'm looking forward to going that. But this year, not traveling as much, but doing what most people are doing and doing a lot of this online.
Yeah. You'll notice I'm wearing my most pink dress.
Very good.
And when I was thinking about this interview, I thought, I don't really know why pink is denotes breast cancer. So what do you know the story behind the pink?
Well, second-handy story is the fact that breast cancer charities like the National Breast Cancer Foundation over here in Australia, there was one in America. So they were the ones that resonated the pink towards breast cancer, and then we replicated that. But when I spoke to, obviously, my best friend Jane, when she asked me to start a charity with her, the reason that she always thought when she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer that pink was synonymous with breast cancer. But she said for her personally, it was the fact that not only losing her breast, but losing her hair, which are the two things that she saw as defining her as a woman. So she felt like pink was about femininity. And that's why she said to me, National Breast Cancer Foundation are like a soft pink, but we're hot. So we're going to go hot pink. And that's about hot pink.
Well, I'm glad I know now the story behind why pink symbolises breast cancer, and especially with your charity. So, Tracy, I want to say firstly, like you and Jane came over from England to live in Australia, I think 2 years apart. Was that correct? And
yeah, that's correct. I met the Australian cricketer Michael Bevan in 93 and then moved over to Australia in November 94. But I didn't meet Jane until 96 because Glenn hadn't met her, and he actually had another girlfriend who I was friendly with, and the relationship didn't work out. He introduced me to his new girlfriend, and he told me that she was English, and we get on really well. And I was saying to him, I don't care, Glenn. Actually, I call him McGrath. I was trying to be polite. And I don't care, McGrath, because I'm still seeing your ex and I don't want to, get to know this new girl. But could I not? We're living the same life, same age. I'm from Manchester in the UK. She was from Birmingham, so not that far away. And the rest is history.
Oh, isn't it funny? And you both really embraced the Australian way of life, but everything about Australia and what you've given back, as two English girls, you've just created the most amazing legacy for Jane and, have such an enormous impact on so many women. So do you think, Jane, she had any idea, or what would she think of where you're at now in the legacy that she has left behind and that you've created through the McGrath Foundation?
Well, I know that one, she would never have guessed we'd be where we are at the moment, with 151 McGrath breast care nurses, and they're all over Australia. and we've been able to support almost 90,000 Australian families. So that she never dreamt, because for us, selfishly, the foundation was set up for two reasons. One, because my friend, diagnosed in 1997, went through treatment without a breast care nurse. But unfortunately, when she was re-diagnosed in 2003, she met what she described to me as an angel, which was a breast care nurse called Alison Schweitzer. And that conversation that we had was when she said to me, you know, I know what we need to do. We need to raise funds for breast care nurses, because she did her research and there wasn't very many breast care nurses. But she also knew personally the difference going through treatment with a nurse and without a nurse. So no, you know, she wouldn't believe we'd be where we are at the moment, because it cost $14 million a year to run our 151 McGrath Breast Care Nurse program. But selfishly, the reason why she wanted to start the McGrath Foundation was because as cricket wives, we'd always spent all our time together, either on tour. And if we weren't on tour, we were always on the phone together. You know, I'm godparent to her children, she's godparents to mine. So we were always together. But what happened was, as happens, you know, in life, is that our time didn't become more about our friendship. It became about being mothers. It became about being wives. So when we did get together, we would be spending, you know, clock watching, or we'd meet for lunch and just grab something quickly to eat, hug, give each other, you know, a chat, hug, and then be off back home. So she said to me, if we do this, Trace, then we do not ever need to feel guilty about spending time out of the family, away from the children. We can do this, we can have fun together, but knowing by coming together and raising funds, we're helping Australian families and giving back to this fantastic, amazing country that we're so privileged to call home. So that was the reasons why the McGrath Foundation exists.
I imagine your friendship was even more cemented through because you're walking the same path, both girls from England, both married to Australian cricketers, so you probably understood so much more about everybody else, about each other, than anybody else outside of that, you know, little cocoon, I suppose, ever could. And Tracy, I gather that Jane had a really wicked sense of humour, and I have been imagining her up in heaven, looking down and having a bit of a chuckle every now and again at all the work she's loaded you on with, up with. But you know, what are some of the funny experiences that you had together?
Oh, she was always the friend, you know, that would say, oh, Trace, go and do that. Knowing what I'm like, you know, and I only ever wanted to please her and have fun with her and laugh. So as cricket wives, I'll never forget how we, I'll give you an example. We were at the final of the one-day series, I think it was in the year 2000, and Australia and Pakistan were playing. Now, it was obvious that Australia were going to win, but the crowd was mostly English there. And obviously, they've got nothing to lose. And there was one group of guys who was so drunk. And Darren Lehman was on the boundary. Now, Darren Lehman's not the most, you know, athletic of players. And he was copping so much abuse. Who ate all the pies? And, you know, he just kept looking around. And anyway, I looked at Darren. Anyway, Jane from out of nowhere shouts, Mrs. Lehman, I wouldn't be happy with that if I was you. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, Andrea's not here. Then she went, Mrs. Lehman. Oh, I'm Mrs. Lehman. So I was like, okay, I wouldn't be very happy with that, calling your dearest husband all those terrible names. So in the middle of a sellout crowd at Lord's, I automatically get up and I walk over to these guys and I said, excuse me. I said, that is my beautiful husband who's done so much for his country with a baggy green proudly sitting on his head. What have you done for your life? And I saw Darren look round thinking, what is she doing now? And all these guys were like, sorry, Mrs. Lehman. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Lehman. And I gave it to them. Anyway, as I walked back, it's like the whole crowd were like going, Ray! yay to me. And Jane was just hysterical because she knew that, I'd just done that. And that's the type of fun that we had together, and it was really different, really difficult being English and barracking for the Aussies, especially on an Ashes tour in the UK. So we used to get, bread rolls thrown at our head, water thrown at us, but we'd just be, yes. So, it was just like that. We all had such fun. And I'm so grateful I've got a lifetime of memories that, times come around and make you sad, but I think about those times and I just can now just laugh.
Yeah. And Tracy, it must have been a real comfort to Jane to know that you were in, her family's life, because I think, as a mum, it must be so, so difficult to leave your babies behind and, to know that they had, a woman figure there that loved them as much as she did. It must have given her a great sense of peace.
Yeah.
I think we're all brought together for reasons, and that's, no doubt part of the reason why you were brought, why your lives were brought together. Anyway, I'm making myself a bit emotional now. Tracy, so tell me some of the statistics of breast cancer, because it's not exclusive to women, is it? There's a certain amount of men who get breast cancer as well.
That's right. So 167 men a year are diagnosed with breast cancer, which is a considerable amount when not many people know that men do get breast cancer. And it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same treatment, and they go through exactly the same as a woman does. But the difference is that there's 55 women every single day diagnosed with cancer in Australia.
Yeah. And there's so many different types of breast cancer too, isn't there?
There is, and that's something that I wasn't aware of until obviously working at the McGrath Foundation. There are different types of breast cancer needing different types of treatment. So that's what we say at the McGrath Foundation. It's a little saying that we say, if you grow them, know them. Because what we're trying to say is we don't want to scare anybody, but we want women, to be having conversations, and young girls, not to be scared of breast cancer, but to be in control of their health and to get to know your breast, get to know the shape. Because if you know your breast, if you're checking them, which we advise that you do, if you see any changes, then go straight to your GP, because the difference, Kelly, can be the earlier you get diagnosed, you find out what type of breast cancer you've got, what kind of treatment you need, the outcomes are so much better. So that's why we say at the McGrath Foundation, be checking yourself, girls, be going for those mammograms, because being diagnosed, if you are diagnosed, because there's lumps that aren't breast cancer, but if you are diagnosed, then the earlier you can get your treatment, the better the chances of beating breast cancer. And, statistics as well, for which not many people know this one, is by the 5-year mark, survival rate is 90%. But that starts from an early diagnosis and getting that treatment.
I was speaking to you earlier before we started about Sally Town, and, she had a lump and it turned out it was benign. But when they took the biopsy, they went through another lump that was inside her breast, which was cancerous. So she was so fortunate, because it may have been, a couple of years down the track when the other one made itself showed itself, and it may have been too late for her. So there's just, there's luck involved too, isn't there?
Someone was looking after her. Someone was definitely looking after her that day when she went for a biopsy.
Oh, yeah. And one thing that I really learnt from Sal talking to her was not to take no for an answer from the doctors, and the doctors said to her, look, we don't think it's cancerous, and they were right. But if she'd listened to them and not investigated further, because she had lost her mum from breast cancer. So anyway, I'm sure she's very, very grateful for being here. Tracy, tell me some of the role of the McGrath breast care nurses.
Yeah, so They are unique because they don't cover any other cancers, so they're there solely for breast cancer. They are completely free and you can self-refer. So you don't need your GP or your oncologist. And what the breast care nurse does in an ideal situation, so on diagnosis, you should be introduced to your local breast care nurse. And the breast care nurse will make contact. And what I hear time and time again is when a family hears about a breast cancer diagnosis, as soon as they've heard about that diagnosis, they don't hear anything else. They go into shock. So what the breast care nurse will do is then walk them through what's going to happen about the treatment, the side effects, answer any questions that they didn't get a chance to ask their GP or oncologist. And I also hear, and I know from Jane, the fact that she felt silly asking some of the questions that were keeping her awake at night, but she didn't feel silly asking the breast care nurse because Jane felt like she was on her level. She said she was like my friend. You know, with my oncologist, I just felt like he did this time and time again. As we know, 55 women are diagnosed every day. Not that they're cold, but to them, it was just a diagnosis. With the breast care nurse, Jane just felt like she could open up and all the answers would be there. And she also knew that every time she went for treatment, the same breast care nurse would be there. So it would be a continuation of treatment. So it was something actually in the end, and I hear it from lots of other families and patients diagnosed, that the breast care nurse becomes like part of the family. You know, even Jane used to say to me, Trace, she's the friend that you can't be. She's the friend that can answer the questions that I don't want to ask you. Because if I tell you how I'm really feeling, then you feel bad and I feel bad because you can't tell me anything. You know, you can't answer those questions, yet the breast care nurse can. So she becomes more than just, a lot of people if they don't know what a breast care nurse, and luckily have not had access to a breast care nurse, they just think of a breast care nurse in a clinical position, but she's so much more than that.
And how do you go about getting the funding to fund those 151 nurses, Tracy?
So many different ways. We rely on, Australians basically, whether it's in the capacity of corporate, whether it's community, and we do have some funding from the federal government and state governments now. So we do, but we rely on, as I said, it's $14 million a year. So we do fundraise more than we receive government support. So for us, especially now during COVID, it's really difficult. But we've been very lucky that, that we do receive that. And especially those families who have access to a McGrath breast care nurse really understand the role of a breast care nurse and really understand the difference that McGrath Foundation is trying to make to a breast cancer patient and their family. Because the breast care nurse is not just there for the patient, she's there to speak to the family. And I know that Jane's breast care nurse was great support for Glenn. So, for us, we really solely rely on Australia because it's not my funds, it's not Glenn, it's Australia. And that's why they've been so amazing to the foundation and allowed us to get to where we are today.
And how quickly has that grown? Because I imagine you have to start from somewhere. So you probably started with one or two nurses. And I think it was it early 2000s that you started on?
Yeah. We launched on the 17th of September 2005 at Hyde Park with Jane, myself and Glenn. Still got the wonderful pictures of Jane and her apron. And we were doing a barbecue because we just launched the foundation with Master Foods. Because Master Foods at the time, they actually allowed us to become who we are because they gave us $1 million. And I always remember saying to me, we just got the kids christened at Hamilton Island, as you do. And Jane said to me, did I tell you about Master Foods? So I said, no, what? And she went, because Glenn had a personal sponsorship with them and they'd met with the directors. And from that conversation, one of the directors' wives had breast cancer. She'd had access to a breast care nurse in Albury-Wodonga where they were based. That breast care nurse was Jenny Black. And she knew the difference that Jane and her charity was trying to make. So they wanted to help us basically get started. So they gave us $1 million. And that's when Jane said to me, oh, we've got to get a little bit serious about this charity now, Trace. I was like, I mean, it was at my house on the Northern Beaches. It was a laptop, and it was just something that we were doing as friends together. But that's what really kicked the foundation off. And we started with Jane's breast care nurse. Alison Schweitzer became a McGrath breast care nurse. And then, that's how we started. But what really changed us was, unfortunately, when Jane passed. She passed away on the 22nd of June, 2008. And obviously, it was a terrible time, but I got to spend that time with her because Glenn was away playing IPL cricket, and she just had surgery and asked me would I come and look after her for the interim till Glenn got back. And I said, of course. And we were spending time together and having fun, talking about all the things I've said about the crazy things we did at cricket. And she took a turn for the worse, and Glenn came home, and we basically nursed her together. And that's where I made promises to her that I will keep forevermore till the day that I see her again. But it was the fact that Australia was devastated by the passing of Jane, and we had $1.2 million, I think it was $1.3 million donated within 3 weeks, and it's never stopped since.
Yeah. Oh, it must have eased your pain a little bit, knowing that you had, or having the focus of this to go forward with, because I think that's so important, isn't it? When you lose someone, you've got to have that, a beacon to go towards, don't you? Otherwise, you just end up in a heap. So that must have been a huge help for you and the McGrath family, I imagine.
Yeah, it was the drive. It's the driving force for me. For me, people say to me all the time, it must be really difficult for you at the McGrath Foundation, reliving the story and telling the story all the time. And no, it's not. That's what makes me happy, because of the conversations that I had with Jane before she passed. That's what makes me, get up every day. That's why I want to help so many people through the team at the McGrath. I mean, listen, it's not me. There's an amazing team behind us, led by our CEO, Holly Masters, and they are incredible. And they do such passionate, dedicated work, just like I do, just like Glenn does. But for me, it's every day keeping that promise to Jane, every day knowing the difference we're making to families' lives and knowing how happy Jane would be. And it's my passion. It's my passion, and it's, I will never stop doing what I do until, they wheel me out there and tell me I have to stop.
Oh, there's nothing like, being behind giving, is there? And to make you feel so good, you must get up every morning and feel like you're on top of the world most of the time, just knowing that you're helping so many people. And I know you must hear some really sad stories, and but no doubt you hear wonderful stories as well. And we were talking before about my friend Sal, who I chatted with the other day, and the lack of a breast care nurse in her region, which is in the Kimberley region of remote Western Australia. So any of those regions that don't have a breast care nurse, I know that one of your goals is to get a breast care nurse in every region and make one available to every woman or man with breast cancer. So how do those regions go about, contacting McGrath Foundation and putting together, putting forward their need for a breast care nurse?
Well, they don't, because we've done our research. We've got a very clever McGrath Foundation. So we've mapped the whole of Australia. So we know every single region that needs access to a breast care nurse. Right now, I told you we have 155. So I think it's another 230 nurses are needed. Now, as I said, it's $14 million a year for 155 nurses. But for us, we're looking to close that gap, continually close. Actually, I think it's down. Now we've just announced more nurses in that 155. So I think it's more about 205 nurses that we need, around that figure. So our mission is that every Australian family, because we look at the breast care nurse supporting families, will have access to a breast care nurse where they live. So as you were telling me, your friend has to travel considerable distances to have access to treatment. So that's what we want to bring that support to the local community. But that's going to take some time. And that's why, especially now during COVID, all we can do right now, because all charities, as everybody, has been impacted by COVID. But for us now, we have to just look at our business strategy, and we have to just look funding the 155 nurses that we've got. So right now, look at closing the gap, because, you know, we are in the same predicament as all charities. So for us, we do not want to take a breast care nurse out of the community. That's not what we want to do. But the focus in time when we get through COVID will be about closing that gap, because but families do get access to a breast care nurse. So if they do log on to the McGrath Foundation, mcgrathfoundation.com.au, there is a part on there saying find a nurse. And all you need to do is put your postcode into the little map, and it will pop the nearest breast care nurse. Now, you might not have face-to-face access, but you can have telephone access to a breast care nurse, because we're all about supporting Australian families, regardless if there's a breast care nurse there in the community. So, you know, if there's anyone that does need or wants access, or even family members, go to the McGrath Foundation website, put your, as I said, your postcode in, and you will have access to a breast care nurse, or call the foundation, because we do have a breast care nurse in the foundation too, a beautiful woman called Pip. She's been with us for 6 years, and what her role is when any of our breast care nurses do go on long service leave, or they go on maternity leave, I mean, they are humans, so, you know, or annual leave, she covers that role. So she will have access to all the patients. So there's a continuation of support. So there is a form of support out there. Just head to our website.
Yeah. And Tracy, you did mention to me that there is a breast care nurse available through the Royal Flying Doctor Service. So that's a really great option for those remote women as well, I guess, and something for them to remember.
Yeah, that was actually one of my proudest moments. I remember when I was doing the media launch for that breast care nurse with the Royal Flying Doctor. Her name's Jo Bevan, funny enough, not related. But it was a really proud moment for me, because I knew that Jane would just love the partnership with the Royal Flying Doctors, because Jo gets to 3 different states. There's 18 different health clinics, and she has access. So that one lady, Annie, she was called, I met her at the Pink Test, and she came running up to me, and we do have a video of her actually. And she just gave me a hug, and she said, "Thank God for Jane McGrath." And I said, "Thank." She said, "I live in the back of Beyond in WA." She says, "And I have the beautiful Jo Bevan fly in on the Royal Flying Doctors." And she said, "I live with my 4 sons and my husband." She said, "And I already know that they don't know what to do or say, and it's a stress for them." She said, "But when we see the Royal Flying Doctors, and I see Jo Bevan's beautiful smiling face coming to, you know, help me," she said, "What's also wonderful is I know she's giving me the support, the medical support, but she's also there to," she said, "it's just lovely to be able to chat to another woman just about gossip." She said, "You know, she's a friend flying in." So I knew that would mean a lot to Jane. So yeah, the Royal Flying Doctor partnership is something that we're enormously proud of at the foundation.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you for all you're doing for Australian women and men and the McGrath, through the McGrath Foundation. And I'm so grateful that I've met you now and found out the importance of the work that you do, but that the funding is so urgently needed, and to, you know, try to get more breast care nurses, and most importantly to keep those nurses that you have on board as well. So, yeah, I'm going to certainly make sure that the McGrath Foundation are at the top of my list for any, you know, donations and giving. So thank you. And, yeah, I just am, like many Australians, like all Australians, I suppose, just so grateful for the friendship that you two girls had, and for everything that you've worked so hard together for, and the legacy that Jane has left behind. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. And thank you to the whole of Australia, because as I said, we can't do what we do without your wonderful support. No matter how big or small, every single dollar is making a difference and helping us raise that $14 million that we need each year. So thank you so much for your support. And and not only did the foundation team want to thank you, but also my best friend, Jane McGrath, we want to say thank you to.
Yeah, I'm sure she would. Thanks, Tracy, so much. I'd love to catch up with you another time to hear your story.
Yeah, anytime. I'm your girl if anyone wants to talk cricket, and all the stories that the boys won't tell you, I can.
Oh, that'll be great. My husband is 47, and he and my son, who's 19, go off every weekend during cricket season and play for our local team, and it's so fun. It's so great to watch them play together. From Hutton being a little kid, and now they're watching his dad play, and now they're both playing together in the same team. Cricket is a pretty incredible game.
Oh, it is. And people always say to me, do I love the game of cricket? And before I met Michael, definitely not. But I love the game of cricket for different reasons, because it brought so much joy to my life. One, being able to live in Australia, knowing all the players all around the world, became like, really good friends. Cricket Australia and the Australian cricketers became like family. And they still now support the charity that my friend started, the McGrath Foundation. So that's why I do love this game of cricket.
Yeah. Actually, Tracy, I listened to you the other day on, I can't remember what it was, or I read it or something, but about the book that Jane read when she was on her way to Australia.
Oh, yeah. Cricket for Dummies.
Cricket.
Well, she was one step ahead of me, because I was a dummy and didn't even know about the book. So, but she was,
I wonder where.
Like, stop it with your leg. Oh, yeah, I didn't have a clue.
I'm ready to buy that book myself, because I'm not real. I just, I'm an avid watcher, but not really. I don't really understand all the rules. So, anyway, thanks so much, Tracy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please try to remember to just click on the subscribe button so we can keep you updated with everything that's happening. Thank you.